Emily's tortured scream still echoed in the cockpit as Patrick Brown's cryopod burst open, alarms shrieking. Frigid vapor spilled over the pod's edges as he tumbled out. His head throbbed as red emergency lights strobed. General Stockton stomped into view, his face stricken. "Get up, the alien bastards tortured a kid, a human girl." Brown hauled himself upright, nearly falling as blood rushed from his head. "Who did it? Where is she?" Ferengi, sadistic bugs, broadcast her pain to the whole galaxy as a warning to humans, tortured little Emily for days. Stockton handed Brown a data pad with an image. Brown winced at the sight. Emily was just 12. Her body was bruised and broken. "Those fuckers!" Brown roared. "What's the Galactic Council doing?" "Siding with them, claiming we're expanding too fast, that we are the threat." Stockton punched the wall, denting it. "They sanctioned this, to scare us into line." "They think torturing kids will break humanity?" Brown seethed. "Exactly, that's why we thawed you. Void Reapers were built for this. Infiltrate the Ferengi planet, get Emily back, make them pay." "With pleasure." Brown cracked his knuckles. "What's the plan?" "A strike team is waiting. We need to move fast before they—" Stockton trailed off. "Before what?" Stockton looked away. "Intel says they're still torturing her, trying to wring out every scream for their sick broadcasts." Brown's blood boiled. He grabbed his pulse rifle. "They want to send humanity a message. I've got one for them." He strode for the door, murder in his eyes. "Let's go get our girl back." Before embarking on his mission, Brown had one final stop to make. He headed down to the EDF's medical facility, where Emily's father, Admiral James Wilson, was keeping vigil at his daughter's bedside. The battle-hardened veteran had seen his share of war and loss, but nothing could have prepared him for this. Wilson sat hunched in a chair, his face drawn and haggard, as he watched over Emily's unconscious form. Her small body was swathed in bandages, hooked up to a myriad of life support machines that beeped and whirred in the sterile room. Brown placed a hand on Wilson's shoulder, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "I'm going to bring her back, Admiral, I swear it. Those Ferengi bastards will pay for what they've done." Wilson looked up at Brown, his eyes red-rimmed and filled with a mix of grief and rage. "Make them suffer, Patrick. Make them feel the pain they've inflicted on my little girl." As Brown turned to leave, he was approached by a woman in a white lab coat. "Captain Brown, a moment, please." It was Dr. Samantha Reed, the EDF's leading expert on alien biology. "I have some information that may be crucial to your mission." Brown paused, his brow furrowed. "What is it, Doctor?" Reed pulled up a holographic display of a Ferengi, its insectoid features rotating slowly. The Ferengi operate under a hive mind mentality, with a single queen controlling the actions of the entire race. If you can capture the queen, we may be able to negotiate Emily's release and gain valuable intelligence on the Galactic Council's plans. Brown considered this for a moment, skeptical. "Capture the queen? That's a tall order, Doctor." "I understand your hesitation, but it may be our best chance at saving Emily and countless others who could fall victim to the Ferengi's cruelty." Reed's expression was grave. "I've developed a specialized containment unit that should be able to hold the queen, but you'll need to get close enough to use it." Brown sighed, then nodded. "All right, I'll do it. But the priority is still getting Emily back safely." Armed with advanced weaponry and a prototype stealth ship, Brown set off for the Ferengi homeworld, located in the heart of the Zorgon Nebula. As he navigated through the treacherous asteroid fields and ion storms surrounding the planet, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Suddenly his ship's alarms blared as a squad of Ferengi fighters ambushed him, their sleek insectoid designs a stark contrast to his own vessel. Brown gritted his teeth, his hands flying over the controls as he maneuvered through the asteroid field, using the floating rocks as cover. The Ferengi ships were fast and agile, their laser cannons scorching the hull of Brown's ship. He managed to outmaneuver them, but not before sustaining heavy damage. Smoke filled the cockpit as warning lights flashed red. With the element of surprise lost, Brown knew that infiltrating the Ferengi stronghold would be even more challenging than he anticipated. but he had no choice. Emily's life hung in the balance, and he would stop at nothing to bring her back home. Brown wrestled with the controls as his ship hurtled towards the Ferengi homeworld, warning lights flashing and alarms blaring in the cockpit. He'd managed to avoid the worst of the ambush, but not without taking heavy damage. Smoke poured from the engine, and the stabilizers were shot. Brown braced himself for impact as the planet's surface rushed up to meet him. The ship hit the ground hard, skidding across the rocky terrain before coming to a stop in a cloud of dust and debris. Brown kicked open the hatch, coughing as he stumbled out into the alien landscape. He had barely taken 2 steps before a swarm of Ferengi warriors descended upon him, their chitinous exoskeletons glinting in the harsh sunlight. Brown drew his pulse rifle and opened fire, but the bolts merely glanced off their armored hides. One of the warriors lunged at him, razor-sharp claws extended. Brown sidestepped the attack and grabbed the creature's arm, using its own momentum to flip it onto its back. He drove his boot into its head, crushing its skull with a sickening crunch. More Ferengi poured out of the tunnels that honeycombed the planet's surface, a vast network of chambers and passages that resembled a giant ant colony. Brown fought his way through the horde, relying on his advanced hand-to-hand combat training to overcome their superior strength and numbers. He ducked under a swinging claw and drove his fist into a Ferengi's thorax, feeling the exoskeleton crack under the force of the blow. Another warrior leapt onto his back, mandibles snapping at his neck. Brown reached back and grabbed the creature by the head, wrenching it off of him and slamming it into the ground. As he battled his way deeper into the heart of the colony, Brown stumbled upon a chamber that made his blood run cold. Dozens of human captives were strung up on the walls, their bodies covered in cuts and bruises, wires and tubes snaking out of their flesh. They were in various stages of experimentation and torture, their screams echoing off the chamber walls. Among the captives, Brown spotted a familiar face. It was Janus, a Galactic Council representative who had gone missing years ago. He was barely recognizable, his once proud features gaunt and hollow, his body wasted away to little more than skin and bones. "Janus?" Brown said, rushing to the man's side. "What the hell happened to you?" Janus lifted his head, his eyes glazed with pain and exhaustion. "The Ferengi," he croaked. "They've been experimenting on us, trying to unlock the secrets of human evolution and adaptability." "Why would they do that?" "The Galactic Council fears humanity's potential. They think we could upset the balance of power in the galaxy if we're allowed to continue unchecked." Janus coughed, a trickle of blood running down his chin. "The Ferengi are just their pawns, a way to keep us in line." Brown felt a surge of anger rise up in his chest. He had come here to rescue Emily, but now he realized that her abduction was just the tip of the iceberg. There was a much larger conspiracy at play, one that threatened the very future of humanity. He freed Janus and the other captives, leading them towards the surface as he fought off wave after wave of Ferengi warriors. The tunnels were a maze of twists and turns, but Brown's enhanced senses allowed him to navigate them with ease. As they neared the exit, a massive figure stepped out of the shadows to block their path. It was the Ferengi Queen, a towering, grotesque creature with razor-sharp claws and a powerful psionic ability that allowed her to control her subjects. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she fixed Brown with a predatory gaze. "How dare to defy the will of the Galactic Council, human?" she hissed, her voice a guttural rasp. "You will pay for your insolence with your life." Brown raised his pulse rifle, but the Queen was too fast. She lashed out with her claws, knocking the weapon from his hands and sending him flying across the chamber. He slammed into the wall with bone-crushing force, the air driven from his lungs. The Queen advanced on him, her movements fluid and graceful despite her size. Brown struggled to his feet, his enhanced strength and reflexes pushed to their limits as he dodged her attacks and tried to find a weakness in her armor. Brown reached for his EDF-issued utility belt, his fingers finding the neural disruptor. He aimed the weapon at the Queen and fired, a pulse of energy engulfing her grotesque form. The Queen staggered, her psionic hold over the Ferengi warriors weakening. The insectoid soldiers faltered, their movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated. Seizing the opportunity, Brown charged at the Queen, ducking under a wild swipe of her claws. He delivered a series of swift, powerful blows to her midsection, his enhanced strength denting her exoskeleton. The Queen retaliated, her razor-sharp claws tearing through Brown's armor, leaving deep gashes in his flesh. Brown gritted his teeth, ignoring the searing pain as he continued his relentless assault. The Queen's movement slowed, her attacks becoming more desperate as she tried to fend off the human warrior. As they grappled, Brown noticed a small gap at the base of the Queen's neck, a vulnerability in her otherwise impenetrable armor. With a deft maneuver, Brown broke free from the Queen's grasp and drew his combat knife. He lunged forward, plunging the blade into the weak spot with a swift, precise strike. The Queen let out a deafening shriek as the knife severed her spinal cord, her body convulsing before collapsing to the ground lifeless. Around him, the Ferengi warriors fell into disarray, their hive-mind connection severed with the death of their Queen. Brown wasted no time, gathering the freed captives and making his way back to the surface. As they emerged from the tunnels, they were greeted by the sight of an EDF rescue team, led by none other than Dr. Samantha Reed. "Captain Brown, I've been monitoring your progress from the stealth ship," Reed said, her voice filled with relief and admiration. "You did it. You defeated the Queen and freed the captives." Brown nodded, his body aching from the battle. "We're not done yet, Doctor. Emily is still out there, and I made a promise to her father." Reed's expression grew somber. "We've located her, Captain. She's being held in a separate facility heavily guarded by elite Ferengi warriors." Brown's jaw tightened, his resolve unwavering. "Then that's where we're going. I'm not leaving this planet without her." As the rescued humans were taken to safety, Brown gathered his team and set off towards the holding facility. The journey was treacherous, the landscape dotted with hidden Ferengi outposts and traps. As they approached the facility, they were met with a hail of laser fire, the elite warriors proving to be far more organized and ruthless than their lesser counterparts. Brown and his team fought their way through the defenses, their advanced weaponry and training put to the ultimate test. As they breached the facility's perimeter, Brown couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The Ferengi's tactics were too coordinated, too precise. It was becoming clear that they were not acting alone, and that a greater force was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Brown and his team blasted through the holding facility's defenses, pulse rifles spitting plasma bolts at the Ferengi guards. They carved a path of destruction, leaving charred insectoid corpses in their wake. As they fought deeper into the complex, they reached a heavily fortified chamber. Inside they found a horrifying sight. Dozens of human test subjects, strapped to operating tables and wired into alien machines. And there, in the center, was Emily, pale, still, barely clinging to life. Brown rushed to her, ripping away the tubes and wires. "Emily, hold on, we're getting you out of here." A cold voice rang out. "I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Captain." Brown spun to see Admiral Wilson emerge from the shadows, flanked by Ferengi guards. Wilson's eyes were hard, his face a mask of grim determination. "What the hell is this?" Brown demanded. "You're working with them?" "The Galactic Council has shown me the truth. Humanity's only path to survival is submission. We must learn from them, embrace their technology." Brown's grip tightened on his rifle. By letting them torture kids, experiment on humans? Hard choices must be made for the greater good. Emily's sacrifice will pave the way for humanity's future. Wilson nodded to the guards. "Take them." Brown opened fire, dropping the guards with well-placed shots. He turned his rifle on Wilson. "I'm taking my goddaughter home." "I can't allow that." Wilson drew an alien pistol, his body blurring with inhuman speed as he dodged Brown's shots. The two super soldiers clashed, enhanced strength and speed pushed to the limit. They traded bone-crushing blows, smashing through equipment, neither able to gain the upper hand. An alarm blared, and a robotic voice announced the self-destruct sequence had begun. The facility shook as explosions rumbled in the distance. "Brown!" Reed shouted over the din. "We have to go." Brown locked eyes with Wilson. There wasn't time to save Emily and stop him. He made the gut-wrenching choice. "You get her out. I'll handle Wilson." Brown's team grabbed Emily and raced for the exit. The facility collapsed around Brown and Wilson as they battled, the timer counting down to oblivion. Brown pummeled Wilson, pouring all his rage and pain into every blow. Wilson staggered, then lashed out with inhuman strength, sending Brown crashing through a wall. Battered and bleeding, Brown dragged himself to his feet. He charged Wilson, slamming him through a bank of computers in a shower of sparks. They grappled, rolling across the buckling floor. Wilson's face was a rictus of fanatic conviction. "Humanity will fall in line. It's the only way." "Never," Brown growled. He grabbed a jagged shard of metal and rammed it through Wilson's heart. Wilson convulsed, blood spurting from his mouth. He collapsed and lay still, a puppet with its strings cut. The facility quaked, consumed by fire. Brown staggered through the flames, his body broken, the last of his strength fading. He collapsed beside Wilson's corpse as the world crumbled around him. In his final moments, Brown pictured Emily's face. He'd saved her, exposed the Council's treachery. His mission was complete. A smile touched his bloody lips as the darkness claimed him. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.